perfect look of film has been the end goal of cinematographers since digital sensors were released. So many people have chased that look and tried to find ways to make their digital cameras emulate all the intangible qualities of film. There have been so many emulations and tutorials, and now, finally, in 2024, Blackmagic has built their own emulation directly into Resolve 19. But the question remains, how good is it? So, all of the footage that you just saw was graded with Davinci Resolve's new Film Look Creator. This is essentially an effect that Davinci has added. You can put it on a node, and it includes basically all of the other film emulation tools that they have already put in different nodes. It used to be that you would have to put in a new halation node, you would put in a new color space transform with the film LUT on it. You would have to put a lot of different things onto it to get that look. Now, it's all in one node. There's some pros to this and there are some cons to this. There's a little less finesse in the controls that you get, but on the same side, you can do it all in one node. Almost all of them were graded with one node, which is just the Film Look Creator node. There were one or two clips where I added just a little bit of contrast, the curve tool, but outside of that, everything's just one node. So this is really cool that you can do all of this, get a look this visually interesting with one node. I tried to show clips from 10-bit cameras, 8-bit cameras, RAW, Sony, 4K 60, 4K 24, lots of different types of footage, and this was the result. And honestly, it looks really good, like really good for the fact that this is just one node, one button, you put it on and it works. This video is a little bit of my thoughts. I'm going to walk you through what the node looks like. I'm going to play with it a little bit and show you kind of what each of the things do, and then you guys can feel free to build your own looks with this. We're going to be trying to figure out how good is it really, and will it be replacing maybe your Dehancer or your other Film Look emulators that you might be using with Resolve? And short answer to that before we get too deep is that no, it probably won't, but it's still really, really powerful for a really quick, really simple and easy film look that honestly is pretty cool, especially if you're in this kind of space, doing YouTube, doing whatever. It's gonna be really sick. So let's kind of get into it. Here I put together just a few clips from a wedding that we shot, and you can see there's a couple of things to look at. If you go in and look at this, there's a couple of different presets, right? So I'm shooting this clip in S-Log, so I had to go in as default. It comes as just use timeline. You know, this is S-Log 3 with the Gamut 3 Cine. So I put that in, timeline, and then you have output white point. This has a couple of different things. There's like a basically what I've noticed is it just tends to change the white balance a little bit. Then you have some basic settings here. So you got like exposure, contrast, all the normal kind of things. You know, fade is pretty extreme. Now that's all pretty standard, and I would say it's decent, but there's a cool thing that you can do. So essentially, if you come down here, you have a halation effect, there is a vignette effect, there's a grain. All of these things are things that are in Davinci Resolve already, but now they have them, it's all in just one place, which honestly is pretty cool. Now, I did a little bit of testing between how I used to do film looks versus how things are now, and we'll get to that in a second. But for now, let's run through a little bit of this. So you've got a vignette, pretty normal. You know, you can adjust lots of things to that. Halation. Now, this is what a lot of people think of when they think of a film look. So you got halation here, right? This is no halation. You can look at kind of the bright points, the highlights in the image, and the halation there. Boom. Right. And this is a classic characteristic of a film look, is some form of halation. Now, there's a lot that you can do with this. You can kind of increase how the radius, the amount, all these things. Even a little bit of the hue if you want to go a little more purple, a little more green. So really cool, looks really good. It's not quite as refined as if you were in the actual halation tool. There's a lot more finesse that you can get with your own halation node, and that's one of the things with this whole Film Look Creator that you might want to think about, is that although there are all of the things that you need in the Film Look Creator to get that look, and it doesn't look bad honestly when you put everything together, it's still not quite as refined as if you were to do a full film emulation by building out your own node tree, adding each one as its own effect, and kind of messing with it in that sense. You have way more control with the masking. With halation specifically, you have way more features to look at. So that might be something to bear in mind. For instance, let's just show the halation here. You can look at the halation here and look at all these settings that we have for this, as opposed to with the other one. So I would say that like you really can control this one so much more than this one. So that's why maybe you might not use the halation in the film node. Bloom, kind of similar to that secondary glow on the other tab. So you got just this, you can increase, decrease. It looks really nice, honestly, with some of the stuff in the background. I really do like the effect that gives. I think I might be using that some. So, and then the grain, this is actually really similar to the built-in grain that comes with Davinci Resolve. But you can adjust. They have the same settings: 65, 35, 16, 8, custom. Anytime you adjust it, it just goes to custom. The amount, the total size, you have the softness, saturation, all that good stuff. So if you image defocusing, all that. Now, if you really want to get fancy with it, that's when you get into the flicker, the gate weave, and the gate. Now, essentially, the film gate is kind of a matte around the edges, right? So they actually have some really cool settings. You have like the old silent film, Academy. You can do a curved edge, Super 16, Super 8. You can even do more of like a cinematic one if you want. This is all, you can just throw this on there. It looks great. Now, essentially, with the gate weave, that is kind of a little bit of a flicker on the actual like gate itself is what you're making essentially. So you can see like there's a little bit of like a wobble, and essentially that's all it's doing, is it's creating a little bit of like a slight, it looks like it's running through a projector like old film, right? That's kind of what that's doing for you. So like look how smooth this is, and it's very clean. Then you turn on the film gate. Let's do the gate weave, and let's turn it up a bit. And you can see there's just that little slight shakiness. It's almost like it's being put through a projector. The frame rate's a little off. It just adds that kind of natural effect. So that's what gate weave is. This is more for if you're really looking for that like retro nostalgic, maybe not the like, oh, I want to make my thing look like it was shot on 35 millimeter like film look, and more of if you're going for like an old like building a Super 8 look from scratch, you might use that in that. So really cool, but just something to think about. I probably would not use these a ton in most of my looks, but it's really cool to have all of that in one place. Again, like if you just threw on like this, they just have it nostalgic, right? Straight out of the camera. This already looks really cool for, you know, what it is. That looks really cool, I think. So let's get into what I was talking about earlier. I was saying that there is a little bit of like a comparison. So this is a clip that I shot a while ago, and this clip is essentially my attempt at a film look, and I'm using kind of all the stuff baked into Resolve. So I've got what I used to do would be I would go in, and we can look at the node tree here a little bit. So this is what was going on in my node tree for a film emulation type look. Again, this isn't like the hardest, like nostalgia super. This was more of just like a fun little film look, clips here. But this tree has, you know, a little bit of color adjustment on the first node. Then here we get into the grain. So again, there's a little bit more, there's more settings here than if you were to do it in the film look that we just did. You have a lot more control over exactly how it is. So that's one thing too that is worth noting, that again, if you were to throw this on a node separately, you probably have more control than doing it in the film look tab. Now we also have color space transform. Now what I used to do is I would go from, you know, my input color space, which is what I shot it in, and then I would convert it to sitting on film log, and then throw on one of Davinci's film looks. So they have, for a couple of different film stocks, I liked the 2383. This is D55, and then at the end you throw on the halation. We talked about that a lot more at control. Now this look is pretty cool look, I would say. Like, it doesn't look bad at all. And there's a lot of control on it. Now, if we were to then go into, I basically redid these. It's not trying to get the exact same look, but just to see what the film look would do, and this is what we got. So if we go here, it's a little bit bluer, which is totally fine. But if we look at this, still looks really nice. This whole sequence is using just the film look panel, essentially. And honestly, it's pretty cool. So this is There's nothing on this node, nothing on this node, just this tab is all this. We go to the next shot, same thing. I did a little bit of just a slight curve afterwards to work on the lighting level. Sometimes using just these controls aren't quite enough for some of the contrast and such, but still really pretty looking for just using essentially one effect. So pretty cool. And again, I just messed around real quick, threw this together. Right, so that was kind of a look at all of this stuff. Pretty cool. Lots of fun features. It's kind of cool to have all of that in one node. But how good is it really? Will you be using this as a pro colorist to do a lot of things? My guess is probably not. And not to say that it's bad, not to say that it's not doing what it was intended to do. But you can just do basically all of the same things with a more built out node tree. So why not have more control over the final look? Why not get a more controlled look that's more consistent across different cameras as opposed to just using one node to do everything? Where this, I think, really comes into play is for people trying to make content fast, people that post a lot of reels, people trying to just make some cinematic stuff really quick. Maybe you throw that Super 8 look that we looked at on your phone. It's going to look really cool, really cute. There's a lot of fun little use cases you can do. I think the gate and the flicker and the kind of the gate weave are some of the cooler things that maybe you want to incorporate just that into your film look. But outside of that, not sure if this is going to be used a ton by high level coloring, but I think people like you and I will be using it a lot because it looks pretty sick. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to check out a smaller creator, somebody who's just getting started. My goal is to keep posting content on filmmaking, editing, photography, honestly, media production in general. I've been doing this for a long time professionally, and I'd love to share some of the knowledge and insights, especially for people that are just starting out, and how we can really elevate our game and get to an even better level. If you felt like this video was informative, I would love it if you wanted to subscribe, like, maybe share it with a friend. It means so much. It would mean a huge impact in my life if this started to go well. So thank you guys so much for taking the time, and I'll see you in the next one.